He sat at the finest table, draped in wealth and arrogance, a billionaire CEO laughing at the very people serving him. When his eyes landed on a young black waitress, he whispered insults in Arabic, certain no one around him could understand. The room chuckled quietly, feeding his ego, but the waitress didn't flinch. She listened, waiting. What he never expected was that she carried a secret of her own, one that would turn his cruel joke into his greatest embarrassment. How could a simple reply shake a man who thought he ruled the room? Her name was Alyssa Turner, a 26-year-old waitress working double shifts just to make ends meet. The restaurant wasn't glamorous. It was one of those polished downtown spots where wealthy businessmen gathered to flaunt their power. For Alyssa, it was just another night of long hours, trays too heavy, and forced smiles. She had grown used to being overlooked, treated as if she were invisible. But what most people didn't know was that Alyssa wasn't ordinary. Behind her calm demeanor was a woman who had studied, traveled, and endured far more than anyone at those tables could imagine. The CEO who walked in that night was Richard Hale, a man known not just for his billions, but for his arrogance. He carried himself like the world belonged to him, every glance dripping with entitlement. To him, waitstaff weren't people. They were background noise. When he and his colleagues laughed in a language he assumed no one could understand, he thought it was harmless entertainment. But Alyssa noticed. She always noticed. Years of hard work had taught her to read every expression, every dismissive smirk, every whispered insult. Something told her tonight would be different. She could feel the tension in the air as she approached his table. Richard's eyes narrowed, and with one careless comment in Arabic, the stage was set. What he didn't know was that Alyssa had been waiting her whole life for a moment like this. The words slipped from Richard Hale's lips like venom, smooth and confident, as if mocking a stranger were nothing more than entertainment. In Arabic, he ridiculed Alyssa's appearance, sneering about her skin, her uniform, even the way she carried the tray. His colleagues erupted in quiet laughter, leaning closer to catch every insult, emboldened by his arrogance. To them, it was just a joke, something to pass the time while sipping expensive wine. But Alyssa heard every word. Every syllable cut through her composure, burning into her chest. What Richard didn't know was that years earlier, Alyssa had studied Arabic at university, mastering it with the same determination she had carried through every obstacle in her life. She hadn't chosen to become a waitress. It was the job she fell into when doors kept closing. Yet no amount of rejection could erase the intelligence and resilience she carried within her. She steadied her breath, her hands gripping the tray tighter, her mind racing. Should she stay silent, let the moment pass, and protect her job? Or should she stand up, risk everything, and expose the truth? The restaurant's atmosphere shifted. A nearby couple noticed the laughter, glancing curiously. A server in the corner hesitated, unsure whether to intervene. And Alyssa, standing there with her head held high, began to feel the weight of a choice pressing down on her. Richard leaned back in his chair, clearly enjoying himself, his laughter echoing across the polished floors. He gestured toward Alyssa as if she were an object, a mere prop in his performance. More Arabic words followed, sharper, crueler this time. His colleagues chuckled again, their arrogance filling the space like smoke. Inside, Alyssa felt something awaken. Years of quiet endurance, every dismissive look, every degrading comment, every moment she had swallowed her pride to survive, rose up like a tide. She realized this wasn't just about her anymore. It was about every person who had ever been made to feel small, every worker forced to smile through humiliation. The decision was made. Her silence ended here. Alyssa placed the tray firmly on the table, the glasses clinking with a faint tremor. The room grew quieter, the laughter thinning as people sensed a shift. She looked directly at Richard, her gaze unwavering. The arrogance on his face faltered just for a second as if he hadn't expected resistance. And then, with perfect fluency, Alyssa opened her mouth. The words rolled out in Arabic, sharp and precise, carrying the full weight of her dignity and intelligence. Every listener nearby froze, realizing what was happening. Richard's colleagues stopped laughing, their eyes wide in disbelief. The man who believed himself untouchable had just been caught, exposed by the very person he thought powerless. The restaurant held its breath. Something unforgettable was about to unfold. The air in the restaurant turned electric. Every head tilted toward Alyssa as her words flowed. Clear, commanding, undeniable. She repeated Richard's insults in flawless Arabic, each one echoing through the room, stripping away his disguise of superiority. There was no mistaking it now. Everyone understood exactly what he had said, and everyone saw who he had said it to. Richard's face drained of color. The smirk that had defined him melted into disbelief, then panic. For the first time, the billionaire who thrived on control found himself powerless. His colleagues shifted uncomfortably, their earlier laughter caught in their throats, guilt spreading like wildfire. Alyssa didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her calm tone carried more strength than any outburst could. She spoke with dignity, each phrase in Arabic precise and deliberate, proving that the man who thought himself clever had underestimated her entirely. Then, with quiet grace, she translated his own insults back into English for everyone to hear. Gasps rippled through the room. Diners dropped their forks, eyes darting between Alyssa and Richard. Richard reached for his glass, his hand trembling. He tried to laugh it off, but the sound was hollow, broken. The same people who once fed his ego were now staring at him with disgust. His power had flipped in an instant, his wealth meaningless against the force of truth. And Alyssa stood taller than ever, her presence filling the room. For years she had been invisible to men like him, but now she was unforgettable. Richard opened his mouth to respond, but nothing came. His arrogance had collapsed into silence. In that moment, Alyssa hadn't just answered back. She had dismantled him. The billionaire CEO, accustomed to mocking others without consequence, was left speechless in front of everyone. The room, once alive with laughter, was now frozen in stunned silence. The balance of power had shifted, and it was Alyssa who stood victorious. For a moment, the silence felt endless. Then came the whispers. Diners leaned toward one another, murmuring in disbelief. A few pulled out their phones, capturing the billionaire CEO's humiliation in real time. What had begun as his private joke was now public and unforgettable. Richard shifted in his seat, desperate to recover, but the damage was done. His wealth, his arrogance, his carefully built image, none of it could shield him from the truth Alyssa had revealed. He had mocked someone he thought powerless, only to be dismantled by the very intelligence he had dismissed. Alyssa, meanwhile, didn't gloat. She didn't need to. She simply picked up her tray, nodded politely, and walked away, her head held high. It was an act of quiet strength that spoke louder than any argument ever could. She hadn't just defended herself. She had exposed a reality too many had lived in silence. Her story spread far beyond that restaurant. People retold it, not because of the billionaire's arrogance, but because of the waitress's courage. Alyssa became a symbol of dignity in the face of humiliation, proof that intelligence and resilience can dismantle even the highest walls of prejudice. And yet, her story was more than poetic justice. It was a reminder. How many times had others endured the same humiliation without a chance to respond? How many voices had been ignored, silenced, or dismissed because of the color of their skin? In a world where wealth and power often silence the unseen, Alyssa reminded us that dignity can be stronger than arrogance and truth sharper than any insult. Her courage wasn't just about speaking another language. It was about standing tall in the face of humiliation, proving that respect cannot be bought, only earned. So I'll leave you with this question. How many more stories like Alyssa's are happening every day? Stories we never hear because the voices go unheard. If this story moved you, don't let it end here. Share it. Talk about it. And if you believe in justice, equality, and the power of standing tall, then like this video, subscribe, and join us as we bring more stories the world needs to hear. Together, we can make sure no one's voice is ever silenced again.